In the year 49 BC, one man stood at the edge of a small river in northern Italy, facing the most important decision in Western history. Behind him was his loyal, battle-hardened army, the legendary 10th Legion. Before him was the border of his homeland, Rome. To cross this river, the Rubicon, with his army was forbidden by Roman law. It was an irreversible act of treason, a declaration of civil war against the 500-year-old Roman Republic, the greatest power the world had ever known. His political enemies in the Senate, jealous of his fame and power, had given him an ultimatum: disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen to face prosecution. To obey meant disgrace and certain political death. To defy them meant plunging the entire known world into a bloody, catastrophic war, brother against brother, legion against legion, all for the ambition of one man. He looked at his men, then across the dark water towards his destiny, and according to the historian Suetonius, uttered the immortal words, "Alea iactais," the die is cast. He then spurred his horse forward, and with that single action, sealed the fate of the Republic forever. Act 1. The ambitious youth. But to understand the man who would tear down a republic, we must travel back to his youth. Born into the prestigious but impoverished Julian clan, a family that traced its lineage back to the goddess Venus, his early life was shaped by his uncle, the great general Marius, whose rivalry with the dictator Sulla painted Rome's streets with blood and taught Caesar the brutal nature of Roman politics. As a young man, Caesar's defiance was legendary. He refused an order from the dictator Sulla to divorce his wife, a decision that forced him to flee Rome and marked him as a man of unbreakable will. In a now famous tale of audacity, a young Caesar was kidnapped by pirates in the Aegean Sea, where he laughed at their ransom demand, insisting they ask for a much larger sum worthy of him. During his captivity, he treated the pirates as his subordinates, commanding them to be quiet while he slept and promising, with a smile, that he would return to crucify them all. After his release, Caesar raised a private fleet, hunted down his former captors, and fulfilled his promise, a chilling display of the ruthlessness that lay beneath his charm. Back in Rome, he began his climb up the cursus honorum, the ladder of political power, winning over the common people with his brilliant speeches and extravagant public games. To fuel his immense ambition and pay off his crippling debts, Caesar formed a secret political alliance with the two most powerful men in Rome, the wealthy Marcus Crassus and the celebrated General Pompey the Great. This secret pact, known as the First Triumvirate, effectively allowed these three men to bypass the Senate and control the destiny of the Republic from the shadows. Act 2. The conquest of Gaul. To gain the military glory and personal army he craved, Caesar secured the governorship of Gaul, a vast and wild territory of warring Celtic tribes, seen by Romans as a barbarian frontier. For the next 8 years, Caesar waged a brutal and relentless campaign, not of defense, but of outright conquest, a war that would make him the most famous general in the world. He proved himself a military genius, building a legendary bridge across the Rhine River in just 10 days to shock the Germanic tribes, a feat of engineering that seemed impossible. He then did what no Roman had ever dared, launching 2 invasions of the mysterious, misty island of Britain, a land at the very edge of the known world. His legions, particularly the fanatically loyal 10th Legion, became the most experienced and effective fighting force on the planet, devoted not to Rome, but to Caesar himself. The Gallic tribes, however, found a leader who could match Caesar's ambition. The charismatic chieftain Vercingetorix, who united the warring tribes into a massive rebellion against the Roman invaders. This rebellion culminated in the legendary Siege of Alesia, where Caesar's army of 50,000 men was itself besieged by a Gallic relief force of over 250,000 warriors. In his greatest display of military genius, Caesar ordered his men to build 2 massive rings of fortifications, one to keep Vercinge trapped inside the city, and another to keep the massive relief army out. Trapped between 2 armies, the Romans fought a desperate multi-front battle, a bloody and chaotic struggle for survival against overwhelming odds. In the final climactic battle, Caesar personally led a cavalry charge into the fray, breaking the Gallic attack and sealing the fate of the rebellion. The sight of the proud Vercingetorix surrendering his arms at Caesar's feet marked the end of the Gallic Wars, leaving Caesar the undisputed master of Gaul, immensely wealthy, and in command of a veteran army. Act 3. The Civil War. Back in Rome, the Senate, now led by Caesar's jealous rival Pompey, watched his rise with growing fear, seeing him as a threat to their power and the very soul of the Republic. The order was given for Caesar to disband his army and return home, an order that led him to that fateful moment at the Rubicon, where he chose war over disgrace. As Caesar marched on Rome, his speed was terrifying. Town after town opened its gates to him, not as a conqueror, but as a returning hero, forcing Pompey and the panicked senators to abandon Italy and flee east. With Italy secured, Caesar displayed his strategic brilliance by first turning west to Spain, where he crushed Pompey's veteran legions in a masterful campaign of maneuver and engineering. The final showdown between the two greatest generals of their age came on the plains of Pharsalus in Greece, where Caesar's smaller, battle-hardened army faced Pompey's much larger force. Using the discipline of his veteran legions, Caesar's army withstood Pompey's cavalry charge and shattered his lines, resulting in a stunning and decisive victory. Pompey the Great, once the hero of Rome, fled the battlefield as a defeated man, seeking refuge in Egypt, a decision that would prove fatal. When Caesar followed Pompey to Egypt, he was presented with the head of his rival, an act of betrayal by the young Egyptian king Ptolemy XIII. Disgusted by this treachery, Caesar entered the treacherous world of Egyptian politics. Choosing to support the exiled queen, the brilliant and captivating Cleopatra, a desperate war erupted within the city of Alexandria, with Caesar and a small force besieged in the royal palace. A conflict that famously resulted in the burning of part of the Great Library of Alexandria. After a series of daring battles, Caesar emerged victorious, placing Cleopatra on the throne of Egypt, a powerful new ally for Rome. Their political alliance blossomed into a legendary love affair, resulting in the birth of a son, Caesarion, whom Cleopatra hoped would one day rule both Rome and Egypt. Caesar then spent the next few years ruthlessly hunting down the last remnants of the Pompeian forces, winning decisive victories at Thapsus in Africa and Munda in Spain. After 5 years of brutal civil war, Gaius Julius Caesar returned to Rome, no longer just a general, but the undisputed master of the Roman world. Act 4. Dictator for life. Rome celebrated his return with a series of magnificent triumphs, lavish parades showcasing the spoils of his conquests and his absolute power over the state. He was named dictator, first for 10 years, and then, in an unprecedented move, dictator perpetuus for life. The Roman Republic, in all but name, was dead. As ruler, Caesar proved to be a brilliant statesman, reforming the Roman calendar to create the Julian calendar we still use today. Granting land to his veterans and launching vast public works projects, he planned ambitious new campaigns and sought to rebuild the city of Rome as a capital worthy of a world-spanning empire. But to many in the Senate, his ambition was a threat. His statue was placed among the kings of old, and he wore the purple robes of a triumphant general, all symbols of a monarchy that Romans had despised for centuries. A conspiracy began to form in the shadows, led by the stoic Marcus Junius Brutus and the bitter Gaius Cassius Longinus, who saw themselves as liberators, not assassins. They convinced more than 60 senators to join their cause, arguing that they had to kill Caesar to save the Republic from tyranny. On the 15th of March, 44 BC, the Ides of March, Caesar, despite numerous ominous warnings and the pleas of his wife, decided to attend a meeting of the Senate. As he entered the theater of Pompey, the conspirators surrounded him, drawing daggers hidden within their togas. One by one, they struck. Caesar fought back until he saw the face of his trusted friend, Brutus, among the assassins, at which point he reportedly covered his face and uttered his final, tragic words. Et2. Brutus. Act 5. The Legacy. Gaius Julius Caesar, the conqueror of Gaul and master of Rome, lay dead on the Senate floor, stabbed 23 times at the foot of a statue of his great rival, Pompey. The assassins proclaimed that they had restored the Republic, but they had misjudged the Roman people, who loved Caesar as a hero. At Caesar's public funeral, his loyal lieutenant, Mark Antony, delivered a masterful speech, turning the tide of public opinion and inciting a riot that forced the conspirators to flee Rome. Caesar's death did not save the Republic. Instead, it plunged the Roman world into another 13 years of bloody civil war. A new alliance, the Second Triumvirate, was formed by Caesar's heir, the young and cunning Octavian, his general, Mark Antony, and the politician, Lepidus. Together, they hunted down and defeated Caesar's assassins, avenging his death but also purging the Senate of their remaining political enemies. But this alliance soon crumbled, leading to a final conflict between the cold, calculating Octavian in the west and the passionate Mark Antony and his lover, Cleopatra, in the east. At the naval battle of Actium, Octavian's forces crushed the fleet of Antony and Cleopatra, leaving him the last man standing, the sole ruler of the Roman world. Octavian, taking the name Augustus, would go on to become Rome's first true emperor, skillfully completing the transformation that his great-uncle, Julius Caesar, had begun. The republic that Caesar's assassins had killed him to save was now gone forever, replaced by the very thing they feared most, the absolute rule of one man. Caesar's name became a title for the emperors who followed him, Kaiser in German, Tsar in Russian, timeless synonym for absolute power. His military commentaries on the Gallic Wars remain masterpieces of strategy, studied by generals and leaders for thousands of years. He was a man of profound contradictions. A populist who destroyed a popular government, a brilliant reformer who ruled as a dictator, a merciful conqueror who could be brutally ruthless. His story is the ultimate tragedy of power, a tale of how a republic, weakened by its own corruption and greed, can fall into the hands of a single, ambitious man. He was the destroyer of the republic, but in doing so, he paved the way for the Pax Romana, 2 centuries of relative peace and stability under the new Roman Empire. His life serves as a timeless warning about the fragility of democracy and the seductive allure of absolute power. He crossed a river, and in doing so, crossed a line from which there was no return. Not just for him, but for all of Western civilization. The assassination of Julius Caesar is one of history's greatest turning points, an act that failed to achieve its goal but succeeded in changing the world. His legacy is written not just in the books of history, but in the very foundation of the empires that followed, and the political language we still use today. He remains one of history's most compelling figures, a man whose genius, ambition, and tragic end continue to fascinate and caution us. His relationship with Cleopatra was not just a romance, but a political and cultural fusion that could have united the worlds of Rome and Egypt. His reforms brought order and stability to a chaotic state, benefiting the common people, even as he dismantled the power of the elite. The loyalty he commanded from his legions was legendary, a bond forged in a decade of shared hardship and constant victory in the wilds of Gaul. His enemies saw him as a tyrant, a man whose personal ambition eclipsed any loyalty to the state. His supporters saw him as a champion of the people, a leader who fought against a corrupt and self-serving aristocracy. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the complex space between the hero and the villain. His story shows how the actions of a single individual can irrevocably alter the course of history for centuries to come. The Roman Republic was already dying. Caesar, it can be argued, was merely the one who administered the final blow. The scale of his conquests was immense, adding vast new territories to Rome and exposing the Roman world to new cultures. His strategic mind was unparalleled, able to see opportunities on the battlefield that no other commander could. He was a master of propaganda, carefully crafting his public image through his own writings to win the hearts and minds of the Roman people. His clemency towards defeated enemies was a famous political tool, winning him allies, but also breeding resentment among his harder-line supporters. The conspiracy against him was born from a genuine fear that he would declare himself king and end the Roman tradition of shared power forever. The aftermath of his death proves a powerful lesson, that killing a leader does not necessarily kill the movement or the changes they have set in motion. Augustus, his heir, would learn from Caesar's mistakes, cloaking his absolute power in the language of the old republic to avoid his great-uncle's fate. The transition from republic to empire, which Caesar initiated, was arguably one of the most significant political transformations in history. He was a product of his time, a hyper-ambitious Roman aristocrat playing the deadly game of politics in a system that was already breaking apart. His story contains epic battles, legendary romances, political intrigue, and a tragic bloody end, all the elements of a timeless drama. He pushed the boundaries of the Roman world further than ever before, leaving a permanent mark on the map of Europe. His complex character continues to be a subject of endless debate. Was he a necessary evil, a flawed hero, or a brilliant villain? His life demonstrates that great historical change is often driven by the immense personal ambition of extraordinary individuals. The civil war he started was not just a war for power, but a war over the very soul of Rome, what it was, and what it would become. His actions forced Rome to confront a question it had avoided for centuries. Could a government designed for a small city-state effectively rule a global empire? The shadow of Julius Caesar looms large over all of Western history, a benchmark against which all subsequent conquerors and emperors have been measured. He was a brilliant general who conquered Gaul. He was a masterful politician who conquered Rome. His story is a testament to the idea that history is not just a series of inevitable events, but is actively shaped by the choices of powerful individuals. He risked everything for ultimate power, and in winning it, he lost his life, but secured his immortal legacy. The Roman Empire that rose from the ashes of the Republic he destroyed would go on to dominate the world for another 500 years. In the end, it is impossible to separate the man from the legend, the destroyer from the builder. Julius Caesar remains a colossal figure, the man who stood at the crossroads of history, and with a single, fateful decision, chose the path that would lead to empire.